person is having a mental health crisis, the idea that they see a social worker show up and they're like, hey, what's up? I'm here on behalf of the state of California to check in on you. That can be an incredibly terrifying experience as well. I don't know if I would sit here and try to figure out juggling at the door. Well, who are they going to be more scared of when there are like 50 more reasons to have cops? It seems like it's better to just either always send a cop or at least a cop plus a social worker. But I don't think you're ever sending just a social worker because people are scared of cops. It doesn't make any sense.
Destiny, you haven't considered the fact that maybe people are just as scared or more scared of social workers than police officers.
Isn't that what I just said?
I'll debate you on the hippy dippy if that's the topic. I'm a werewolf enjoyer.
Well, I mean...
So
I know, that's a tough one, isn't it?
I can host it. I can host it. Okay.
So
I'm trying so hard not to make any horse jokes right now, guys.
I just think there needs to be more of a balance. America's in a really shitty spot because everybody could potentially be armed, which is why, like, cops go into situations heavily armed, which is very problematic. But at the end of the day, we also have to talk about what kind of people go into becoming cops and why they do it, right? Like, the role has to be entirely changed because people go into this job for whatever sort of power trip it creates.
What?
A lot of the time.
You think that people only become cops because they want to go for a power trip?
A lot of them do,
No,
yeah.
I think some people maybe go in wanting to make the world a safer and a more just place, but at the same time, there are a lot of people who go into it to inflict power on others.
Or it's just like a stable job with some good pay. I don't know.
I think something just as a quick
Capitalism has allowed for very little people to have any sort of social mobility, and becoming a cop or joining the military or is one of those things where you can get a stable income where you can actually survive. So yes, there is lots of reasons, but you can't ignore the power dynamics at play here.
I think it's a quick, just a quick reality check. So a welfare check, the reason why you call somebody to do a welfare check is because you think somebody might be in trouble. Somebody, it could be an elderly person, maybe has fallen down or something, and you don't have the ability to get to the residence. The reason why you do a welfare check is because a cop can go to the residence, they're allowed to knock, and then if they have reason to believe that something bad has happened, they can break in to get into the house to make sure that the person is okay. A cop doing a welfare check isn't a cop walking up to the door and screaming like, "This is the fucking police, open the fuck up." That's not what a welfare check is, and that's not how police conduct themselves during a welfare check. Just a quick heads up for that.
Thank you.
When did Destiny jump in here? What the hell?
I didn't realize
I was really
that
getting Let's get this fucking show on the road.
I was like,
let's fucking
who's
go.
Destiny?
It's not a
camera
British
on.
I
accent.
was confused.
Let's fucking
No,
go.
he's
Come on.
right.
Let's get at it.
Like,
I gave you the link to the video
if
chat.
we want to defer
if you want it.
to broader research on this, there are plenty of criticisms of the way that police are used in this country, the ubiquity with which they're used, the ways in which they're trained, and the fact that we overload them with basically every civic function that we send people out to do that we can get away with. So the argument that no, not literally every welfare check is them storming down the door, but yes, there have been plenty of arguments made, even from people in the police departments, that a heavier focus on de-escalation could be achieved with non-police officers, because police officers' first priority, in accordance with their training, is always going to be, well, not very de-escalatory.
So a cop's goal is always to de-escalate, but I mean, if a cop is called to an area, then obviously that might not be what's happening. If you've called a police officer, you're already in an exceptional circumstance, of course. The reason why cops are sent out to places is because of liability. And this is why even with social welfare checks, or when a social worker is called, oftentimes you want a police officer there for liability reasons. If you're getting to an area where something has escalated so much that you feel like you need to call external parties to help with some sort of mental health crisis, there's a much higher likelihood that you're going to enter an area where somebody needs the authority to apply force, which is by the state, that's going to be there in order to have that person on hand to do it. This is why even if we do these things where social workers show up to place or whatever, if you're calling like somebody to do this, you're probably going to have to send a cop along anyway.
Yeah, but aren't we at a point now where people are like, some people are scared of the cops and there needs to be a way to call somebody that's not a cop to deal with your situation too?
Yeah, but so like here's the problem, okay, is that if you're a social worker and you were, and I super recommend if anybody ever wants to drag an actual social worker onto this to talk about it, when you're a social worker and you're calling this, people seem to think that like social workers are called in because, oh, you know, like Johnny's feeling really depressed and maybe he's a little suicidal and we want to call a social worker over to the house to chat with him. This isn't like what social workers are typically called to homes for. They're usually called to homes in the event of like a mental health crisis. So it might be somebody's like literally locked in a bathroom with a knife saying they're going to kill themselves. It might be somebody that's taken their child out and they could be at risk. It could be somebody locked up with a gun. Like these are the types of things you call a mental health like professional for. Even inside institutions, there will be people that will make calls to police officers when they're dealing with certain types of patients. These situations are they're really difficult, and oftentimes you need somebody that's ready to assume the violent liability there in order to handle the situation, which is why cops are involved in these types of things so often. I don't really see a way around that, unfortunately.
So you think that every role the cops fill right now is the one which needs to be filled by cops?
If it's not filled,
all the roles which are not filled by cops, it's acceptable for the risks to be taken by a person who isn't capable of exercising that violence.
Well, it depends on what roles you're talking about. If we're going back to the pizza driver thing, I don't think calling a cop is going to help you avoid like a drunk driving accident or something. Like if we're talking about these types of things, then no. Also, individuals can carry firearms with them if they want. They can call the cops if they want. There's other things there. But secondly, the problem is that when people talk about like, oh, well, we need to do these things, or we need to not have cops go here. We need to have some other person. When you start to ask questions about, well, what other kind of person is, you're just going to be building a different type of cop. So I'll say, okay, well, so in a mental health crisis, you don't want cops? You'll be like, well, no, of course not. It's like, okay, so who should go? A social worker. Okay, well, the social worker needs to have training to subdue somebody. You agree with that, right? Well, yeah, it'd be a social worker with that training. Okay, we also probably need to vest some authority in them to like apply force, right? Well, yeah, of course. They probably need a weapon, right? Yeah, at least like a taser or something. Okay, you're basically just building a cop again, right? It's easier to take a cop and
role that a cop fills
Wait. But don't you think that there are situations which we send cops to do things like they monitor fucking public high schools and shit like that, where we could have someone who's way more well equipped to do this take over this job? Because this is the position that I think me and Vaush
have you ever gone to a high school with metal detectors?
Have I ever gone to a high school with metal detectors? Do you think people bring guns to every high school?
Wait, hold on. So a lot of high schools have metal detectors now, right?
Have you been to a school where like violent fights break out every day? Like that's like the type of place where
hold on,
wait,
hold on.
Yeah, and usually teachers get in the middle of those fights and break them up. Like, no cops needed. No, yeah, absolutely they do. You think that they need a cop?
Hold on. This is complete
what are you
anecdote
talking about?
Okay, hold on. This isn't some radical lefty concern. Police are dramatically overworked in this country because they do get sent out for so much, and this is something that is different in other countries. It's a problem that we have in particular. Now, obviously, America has a higher rate of gun ownership, but the percentage of like cop time that's spent on violent calls or like in direct immediate threats of violence is quite a small portion of what they do altogether. Oftentimes they show up to take notes after a potential property crime. They respond to non-criminal calls. There are traffic issues. Mental welfare checks are not all somebody's at such a point that they're probably going to kill themselves. You can just call the cops and say, hey, I'm worried about my friend. And with no other information, and they'll send police officers. The idea
but
that
why are you calling
all
the
of
cops?
These roles need to be because Americans like calling cops.
Okay, but that's Americans. If you're calling a police officer to say you're worried about your friend, what is it? I don't know. My friend just lost his holographic Charizard. Can you go check up on him? Like, so what are you saying when you call the police?
When you call the police, the information you give them will dictate the response they decide to send. If you tell them that there's a hostage situation, they send a SWAT team. If you tell them something less important than that, they send a police officer. And maybe, in a better world, if you told them something that seems not immediately threatening, they could send somebody who's not even a police officer, somebody whose job deals more with interpersonal interactions and de-escalation than what cops do. The ideal cop would be able to do all of these roles, but we know they can't. We know for a fact they can't. There are severe criticisms of the way that our police spend their time in this country.
Yeah, this is why we're talking about specialization earlier, okay? This is why it's important to, like, send people who are more equipped to handle these things out. I don't know why we couldn't, why we beat around the bush with that all so much.
Can I share an anecdote?
Please.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, once, my friend did something not so good at my house and called the ambulance. Actually, she called the ambulance on herself. Because, yeah, she was like, I think I'm a danger to myself, so should probably go get some help. And then, even though she called the ambulance and told them what happened, a paramedic showed up, and the police also showed up because there was someone doing something harmful to themselves. And I think that kind of made sense because they didn't know in what kind of headspace she necessarily was, or if what kind of weapons she might have had. Like, I do think that it kind of made sense for the police to show up, but also this is New Zealand, so like the cops didn't come in with guns or anything, and they just had a very calm conversation with us to figure out what had happened, and then the paramedic took us to the hospital. And I feel like that kind of made sense to me. That situation didn't seem bad.
I don't know the specifics of New Zealand police treatment, but I imagine they don't have the same issues that we do. It's also possible, I mean, you could make the argument for sending an EMT and an ambulance after pretty much every police call, right? Like, you never know if there's going to be a problem. Obviously, we all have to learn when to draw the line on expenditures of police or state resources. And I'm only saying that, and again, this isn't some radical lefty opinion. This has been a criticism for decades. We do overtax police by having them fill a ton of roles. Seriously, if we could just get response to non-criminal calls, like not even an implicit threat, done mostly by social workers, we could cut down on the amount of police time responding to calls by nearly a third. And the benefits of that would be enormous with regards to city budgets, with the actual well-being of these cops, because it would probably mean that they're a little bit less strained. I think that you can like make really good arguments for some types of work being delegated, and we can try this on a city-by-city basis. Maybe we don't need cops standing guard at these high schools. Maybe having social workers there would work better. I know that I don't know what the data is on like having cop guards at high schools, like leading to increased rates of graduation or lower violence are, but I do know that recently there was that dad project. You had like 24 kids who were arrested for scuffling in the school. So a bunch of dads got together, and they now they're there, and now kids aren't getting arrested because the dads are there to just sort of, I don't know, dad shame people, stuff like that, you know? Like, we have to get rid of the idea that everything is dangerous, so everything has to be done by a cop, and like, oh, cops aren't great at everything, and they're actually quite bad in America at de-escalation. Well, that's just a risk we have to take. We need to be more exploratory than that, city by city.
Do you think though, in most situations, it should be both? Like, there should be this specialization where there are teams of people, where somebody is trained, in firearms, and then there is a social worker involved.
Yeah, but we can come up with different combinations and different practical applications in all types of settings, which I think would be important. But there's lots of practical applications where we don't need to send police at all. That's the important thing.
I'm having a hard time. I'm having a hard time understanding what these like mental health crises are that are so essential. You need to call a third party that you wouldn't want a police officer there for liability reasons. Like, I'm just curious. I'm genuinely asking. Is there like an example or?
Are you asking because you don't know? Have you ever?
Okay, I don't know if this is supposed to make the argument stronger. What I'm asking is if you've escalated something to the point where you have to make a phone call, you're saying, hello, there is a situation that is so out of control where I'm at right now, I need to bring in another person to deal with it. But it's fine, I don't need a cop. I'm just curious, what are those types of situations? That's what I'm asking.
So, welfare checks oftentimes are done literally just because you're concerned about a person. I know that, and I could dig this up, and I don't know if there's specific data on this, but the idea that every welfare check is being done because an American has waited for the last resort and only now are they willing. A lot of people panic call 911 because that's the only option we have when it comes to asking the state for any kind of interference. Unless you have a friend in the neighborhood of whatever friend you're concerned about, the state has nothing else for you. There's nothing else you can send. There's no other number you can call. It's the cops. So in many cases, we don't even have a normalization of the channels that people could go through to indicate they want someone other than a cop. But I'll say this, I have called welfare checks on somebody because I was worried about them, and I did have to call the cops. But I wouldn't have if there had been an alternative. The cop was undesirable, but preferable to the absence of information entirely. And thankfully, nothing happened. She was fine.
If we're making a welfare check on somebody, we're implicitly or explicitly saying there's a chance that you're going to go to a house, and the house you're going to has a dead person inside. You might even need to break into it. Like, do we just send like a social worker there and then they either break in, or when the social worker gets there, if nobody answers there, do they call the cops?
I think that is an extraordinarily small fraction of the total range of. Again, this would be like.
Wait, no, wait. Okay, you keep trying to say like, wait, hold on. You keep trying to say like, this is a small fraction.
And how often that is the case?
Okay, it's not about how often. It's about the possibility of it being the case.
There's always a possibility that any state action, anytime you send anyone to fulfill any role at any house, something horrible could happen. Now, if you would ask the majority of people calling for a welfare check, do you want a cop or a social worker sent to the house of that person? I would be willing to bet a majority would ask for a social worker, not all, but I do think that's a decision they should at least be able to make.
Yeah, possibly. I don't know if that's even a situation, because there would have to be further explanation given there. When you're making a call for a welfare check, what you're telling the operator on the other end is there is a chance that you're going to a residence that you might need to break into, and there's a chance that there might be a crime scene because there might be a body. That is the entire point of a welfare check. A welfare check means that there is somebody that you are concerned about in a house and you cannot get a hold of them in any way. So they're not responding to any sort of phone call, cell phone, whatever, and you don't have another friend that you can go check up on them. So when you call an operator, you're saying they could be dead, there might be a crime scene, you might need to break in to check on that person. That's the point of a welfare check.
Right, so when we generally have welfare checks, do you think that it's an initial first move or a good idea to just send some cops there willing to barge down and break down the door? Do you think that that's like the best outcome, when most often we don't need these cops to come out here and, you know, handle these situations, when we could have a social worker go knock, check on the door, make sure the person's alive, and then leave? Especially when cops are more threatening, they are more intimidating, and it definitely is going to make someone having a mental health crisis more on edge and more feel more antagonized or feel more problematic.
Sure. So like that's a potential thing. But so here's the question then, right? Since cops are hooked up to EMTs and can get all these people on the line very quick, they usually have training when breaking a train. Let's say that you think there might be somebody that's suicidal. You do a welfare check, okay? But you don't think they're like a threat to anybody. You're just like a little bit worried. Let's say that a social worker shows up to the house. They knock a few times. They don't get an answer. At this point, there's two paths. One, are these social workers also trained to like break and enter doors or whatever? Are they ready to assume that liability? If yes, then they can, okay? If no, then now they have to call the police to do a break and entry. Let's say that in the time you call the social worker and they're there, the person's like on the floor, like choking on their own fucking tongue because they were trying to OD on some drug or whatever. I guess like, are you worried about the fact that now you're just causing more and more time between like a breaking and entering, which you would need to do to check in on some people that might be in the process of killing themselves? Like, is there some number of like, well, it'll happen to 1% of cases, 2% of cases?
Wait, no, I'm going to answer this.
First of all, we're talking again about fringe cases. Second of all, I'm pretty sure you could train social workers in that way and give them legal permission in welfare checks to engage in.
Wait, no, I want to get in here. I want to get in here, okay? I need to get involved with this. I have a fucking question.
Then I'd like to finish my response, if that's okay.
Okay, fine.
The biggest rebuttal to this is that the first people you send for a welfare check aren't the cops, it's your friends and family if they're nearby. If we really thought of welfare checks as something like, okay, they could encounter a dead body, you know, there could be a threat, then people would always first call the police. But if they have friends and family in the area, those are always the first people that you call when you want to check up on somebody's well-being. Clearly, in practice, welfare checks aren't like, who are you sending to collect the body? We're talking about overwhelmingly a situation where at least you just check in on the house and see if anyone's there, if anyone's in need of assistance, and at worst, usually involve a situation that I legitimately think a social worker would be better trained for than a cop. Cops in America, I just would not trust dealing with somebody in a mental health crisis. But a social worker could be trusted because their interpersonal training hasn't been corrupted by the kind of machismo-laden, like police, like us versus them training. That is a very
okay. Hold on. Firstly, this is not.
Wait. No. I need to get in here before you guys move on. Okay. Wait. Not just that, but wouldn't it be like a better option to send social workers in initially alone to check on this premises, and then they could have police like behind them?
Wait,
no.
Person's choking on the floor. You're just wasting time.
No.
You're wasting time. You are.
Yeah. So we could literally have police like be down the street, or they could wait in the car and come with the social worker, and then the social worker can just go.
I'm sorry, dude. No.
But at that point, now we're like, point, which is who are you calling?
Wait,
who are you calling if a vampire is trying to suck your dick? Women is the entire point.
No,
Aren't
we're
we
not
talking
starting
about
with this
stretching
again.
the police too thin? So now we're sending even more fucking people to go handle
Did I
something
get
that
it
a
You
cop.
know what?
Yeah.
Yes, because I don't want police going in situations where someone might kill
Okay,
themselves
but the way you
because
guys
people
are
are
describing social
terrified of the
workers, it's
police.
just like a cop that you like better that doesn't have a gun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean
so the
that
they
is
don't even have
essentially
to
the
go
case.
with-
Also, this idea that
It's-
like
no,
every
no,
cop
that's not
is
the case.
showing
That's
up.
absolutely not
It
the
is. It's a
case.
state
That's-
worker that has like
I'm sorry.
all the vested authority or whatever
People-
that could
wait,
is going to
hold-
call
wait,
the
hold on,
cops
wait,
ultimately
that's-
anyway.
Every time we
Hold
find
on.
an issue
Wait,
with a
wait,
social
hold on,
worker,
wait,
you just
wait,
go,
wait,
well, let's
stop,
just
stop,
give them
stop.
clearance.
Wait, hold on. That's an incredibly stupid take. The
Hold
idea
on, wait,
that
no.
because
The incredibly
cops and
stupid take
social-
is that every
Wait,
cop
wait,
that's going to
hold
show
on,
up at the
let me
door is going to be
finish.
some macho
Destiny,
guy trying to mow you down at
They're
the
just
door.
chugging a
That's not
Monster
the
Energy
case.
drink and killing black people.
That's not what cops do
Wait,
typically.
wait. The idea that people think of cops the same way they would think of a social worker because they're both agents of the state is laughably dumb. People don't look at a cop and think, oh, that person works for a government. They think that's a cop.
I'm not talking about
uniform,
optics. I'm talking
the
about what you're
badge.
describing.
I mean, if we want to allude to the
Mental
polling
health
data, the
crises
majority
are
of
very-
Americans have favorable views of cops anyway. Not every cop
We're
is like
not
the
talking
videos
about
that you
whether
see
or not
on.
they have favorable views of cops. We're talking about your statement that in mental health crises, people would view social workers about the same way as they view cops because they're both agents of the state.
Okay, I'm
There's
just
a
curious.
huge
I just want to
difference
hear.
from
I
the
just want to hear
person-
your response to this. Do you think a person experiencing a mental health crisis that sees a state licensed social worker coming views them in a favorable light? I'm really curious what you
I
think
think
about this.
more favorably than a cop. I'd be willing to bet that's the case. Yes.
Okay, I don't necessarily think that's the
Different
case.
uniform.
Wait,
Destiny. It's
no,
totally
no.
different.
I want to hear. Wait. I want to hear his rationalization for why someone would think of a
Yes,
cop
they'd
more
be exactly
favorably.
the same. Perfectly.
Because depending on your experience, because depending
cop
on
knocking,
because
you know, got the badge and the guns and shit. Like, oh yeah, that's the same as some dude in a polo shirt who has like a little state ID on there. Yeah, no.
So I mean, you can joke
think
about it
there's
all
a
you
bunch
want,
of
but
white
like,
people
for
that can
instance,
talk about how
it is a
people
joke,
perceive
yeah, it's
cops.
very
okay,
funny.
we can go to real examples,
but
right?
the-
Wait, no,
actually-
hold on, wait. Okay, Jesus fucking Christ, okay? So for all of you that none of you have experience with people that have mental health crises, I understand that. That's fine. It's totally
talking
normal.
about me?
Okay? Yes, all of you. Yes. Okay? So people that have had mental
Very
health
presumptuous
crises,
of you.
people that I can tell by the way that you talk. So people that have had serious mental health crises,
That cops and
especially
social workers would be considered differently by
no,
people
that
in
you have
crisis.
no idea
let's-
how
let's let
absolutely
each other
frightened
finish.
somebody can be of a social worker that's representing the state when it comes to a mental health crisis.
I'm only saying they would probably be less so them than
But
by
you-
a cop.
but you
That's my
don't
only
know
position.
that
you
because-
keep jumping to my argument
Okay,
being,
keep-
I
oh,
think
yes,
social
keep
workers
talking,
would elicit
just
no
keep
fear.
talking,
I've never
okay?
said that.
So if you're somebody,
I can repeat it again if you need
I
it.
don't need you to repeat it. You've done it 3 times.
So
if you're
just to make
There's
sure,
sexual tension.
I'm
I
not
don't-
saying
like-
social workers can't be scary. Only that I think for mental health crises, cops would generally be considered scarier. So just keep that in mind.
It totally depends on the type of mental health crisis and the person you're talking about. So for instance, if you're
Sure.
somebody that's already been like forcibly fucking not interned or condemned, committed like in the state, like you're probably somebody that's going to see a cop as being less scary than a social worker. Like there are people that don't even seek help from mental health professionals because they are so fucking afraid of being committed to an institution. This is why Byron jumped out a fucking window and killed himself instead of trying to find more help, because he had one bad experience where he was committed to a mental institution and he never wanted to talk to anybody related again.
Cops can
It wouldn't
commit you.
surprise me. I know that they can, but I don't know if most people know that. It wouldn't surprise me if somebody
yes.
saw. You can laugh all you want, but I don't think that most people
Cops
see a
are the
cop
ones
and
who
they're
bring you to the hospital for the detainment, the mental
I mean,
health
okay,
detainment.
so
they're the
you
ones
can
who
keep,
do that.
I understand that cops definitely have the ability to do that, but if you're
I
talking about it
feel
from
like
the
you're making a
perspective,
lot of stuff up to justify a position.
I wonder
You
how many
wouldn't
times you're
actually
gonna
hold
cut
if
me
I
off
wasn't
because
here.
you realize your entire argument is so fucking
Wait, guys,
stupid.
there's something we're totally missing.
You can just keep cutting me
apart.
off, I guess, if you want to, right? So I'm just saying that if a person is having a mental health crisis, the idea that they see a social worker show up and they're like, hey, what's up? I'm here on behalf of the state of California to check in on you. That can be an incredibly fucking terrifying experience as well. I don't know if I
So
would
then
sit
a
here
cop
and try to
on average,
figure
I'd be
out
willing to
juggling at the
bet.
door. Well, who are they going to be more scared of when there are like 50 more reasons to have cops? It seems like it's better to just either always send a cop or at least a cop plus a social worker. But I don't think you're ever sending just a social worker because people are scared of cops. It doesn't make any sense.
Destiny, you haven't considered the fact that maybe people are just as scared or more scared of social workers than police officers.
Isn't that what I just said?
I'm just repeating Vaush's point now.
Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, no. I'm pretty sure that by any available data we have, most people fear or distrust cops more often than they do social workers, because social workers are like the most innocuous and non-threatening agents of the state you're probably going to have a direct interaction with in most cases.
Okay.
Cops also have a... Wait, hold on. So the idea that to a person undergoing a mental health crisis, a cop is a more welcome sight than a social worker is, to me, something I'd like to see borne out in data.
I don't know if we can find data on that, but I'm just going to tell you, okay, I understand that.
Can you find data
I can't find you data on how many people prefer a social, how many people in a mental health crisis prefer a social worker to show up than a cop. Here's what I will say broadly speaking. Here's what I say broadly. Here's, I can give you all I can provide are my anecdotes, okay? Here's what I can say broadly speaking, okay? Because at least I have some, because apparently nobody here is
cops and social workers check up on
Yes, I've had CPS show up to my house before. I've had police officers show up to my house for domestic violence disputes. I've had all sorts of
mental health check. I did not
for a mental health check. I don't think I've had that specific experience. Hold on, wait. I just want to address. I just want to address one thing real quick, okay? People seem. I know that like when we talk about socialism and left-leaning government stuff online, we have these really great views of social workers and the state. Okay, to a lot of people, especially people that have. It's absolutely not. When you are a person that has had negative run-ins with the state can be incredibly fucking terrifying to deal with.
You mean
when
the
you've
police?
got child protective
interaction they had.
Hold on. When you've got child protective
what negative interaction did they have with the state?
I have to finish a sentence, okay? If you've been somebody that's had run-ins with, it could be the police, it could be social workers, it could be child protective services, it could be people related to tax collect. There are all sorts of agents of the state where you might have a really friendly, fuzzy view of them, but if somebody's had negative run-ins with the state, these can be the most terrifying people that you ever deal with in your life.
A lot of the times the mental health also involves sometimes, right, the neglect of family members or the the aggression towards other people, right? Like every mental health case is going to be different.
So yeah, any case of anything is going to be different. I think that while there isn't going to be specific data on the fear people have of cops versus social workers, I think it's reasonable to say, given the fact that we do know many Americans distrust the police, or at the very least are anxious around them. That's very common. That a mental health crisis is a time where those fears could be elevated, and you would be more likely to be amicable towards a guy in a polo shirt with like an ID badge than somebody in what cops wear, which is some combo of military and police gear.
I think the reason why you feel that way is because you don't understand what those social workers represent.
You need to interrupt less. Okay?
Wait, you talk for like 20 minutes when you talk. I just keep cutting you off. You cut me off 30 times. You don't understand what those social. You don't understand what those social workers interrupt.
Let me finish. It's fine.
Oh man.
So most people's negative experiences with the state are going to be with cops, not social workers. So if you're talking about pre-existing biases against the state, I don't think there are people out there like, yeah, man, I had a bad run-up with the state. Those social workers fuck you up. It's usually cops.
CPS.
It can be your probation officer. Like the thing is, you just don't know anybody that's had negative run-ins with the state because you don't understand what that experience is like. You're talking so cluelessly right now. Like, oh, well, the only people that are truly scared of the state are like poor black people that get murdered by cops. Like that's your only experience because on Twitter that's the only connection you have to people that have run-ins with the state. I'm not projecting. I'm going with exactly what you're saying. I'm just saying that for you to say, who are you talking to right now? For you to come out and say, the only negative interactions you truly have with the state, generally they're with police. There are tons of negative social interactions that you can have with the state that aren't police. Now, for wealthy or middle class people, generally it's not. It can be, but it could be others as well. If you're the type of person that has mental health crises, it might be a social worker. Right?
Wait, hold on. I don't know why. It's very indicative to me that you don't have a point to make when I say it's probably the police, and your counter argument is it could be other things. That's what probably means.
Because it's probably when we talk about the broader population, the most common social type like employee you're going to run into is going to be the police. But if you're somebody that has mental health issues, that might not be the most common type of person. It might be a social worker. It might be somebody representing the state that's about to fucking commit you somewhere because you're a threat to yourself. This is why some people don't even go to therapy because they're so scared that if they say something that sounds suicidal, they're going to get deferred or reported to social services, and they're going to be like committed somewhere.
Cops more than a social worker.
It's not about. I would be more okay with cops and social workers for reasons that aren't related to.
This is so we don't really have anything to go off here, but Destiny's intuition, in spite of the fact that data on anxiety around police is recorded.
You have no data. What are you talking about?
But
wait. Why are you pretending you're making data-driven arguments?
Hold on. There's no data on whether or not people tend to feel uncomfortable around the police.
That's not what we're asking. There's no data. There's no data. Hold on. There's no data on whether or not sending a police officer or a social worker to somebody having a mental health crisis is going to have a better outcome or is going to make them alleviate like some concerns.
You should listen a little better. I specifically said we have data on whether people feel anxious around the police. And
it's people in general. I feel anxious around the police in traffic. That's not the same type of question.
Very tangentially on the mental welfare check issue, which was kind of a side issue to the broader point that I made. police get called to a ton of stuff. We're hyperfixating right now on how fearful people would be of which type of... And I think I'm completely right on that mind, but there are also tons of things that cops do that they don't need to do. Cops agree on this. They agree they're overworked. They know that a lot of their work is paperwork and doing rote, bureaucratic stuff that could be done very well by anyone else who's literate or has basic interpersonal skills. And all I'm really asking, and this is all
social worker do the paperwork,
by the way, is we should be open to the possibility that we should be more specialized.
There is data that's sending social workers,
because we're never going to have data on any of these things until we're more accepting of social workers being sent out. Let's start with them doing stuff that we know has like a 0% chance of inciting violence, like noise complaints, or there was a robbery at my house. Can you come do some paperwork? Stuff like that. To my knowledge, these are not the types of things that lead to violence. We can start with that. Those two on their own, that would probably take away 10 to 15% of the time that cops spend on out there. And that would be, and social workers are much less expensive than cops, let me tell you that, okay?
But not if you're talking about endowing them with all the liabilities and all the training. Like, yeah, they're less expensive than cops. They're less expensive than cops because they don't have the training to like break into places or assume the liability to do that or have to go and write and file police reports. Of course they're cheaper. They have less responsibilities.
All I've said so far is two things, both of which require basic literacy and interpersonal skills. They could be done by pretty much anyone competent enough to be a social worker. And I also think there are benefits to doing that because, again, there's something inherently escalatory about cops in this country. We recognize that. They're trained that way, and we know how people tend to perceive police officers with the way they dress and act, that social workers don't really do. So
to be clear, cops aren't supposed to be inherently escalatory. Cops are supposed to be inherently de-escalatory.
I didn't say they were supposed to be.
But the
they just are, right?
When you call a police officer, when you call a police officer, the point of calling the police officer is to de-escalate a situation because it's heading in a direction that you don't want it to go. That's the reason why you call a police officer.
It can be a number of things.
No,
and also,
I actually need to move on from this topic because this is like.
Well, you brought Destiny on because he wanted to talk with me. I mean, this was kind of inevitable.
No, I came on because I hate hearing people give shitty takes about like what social workers do.
Why were you hearing it?
Because I get linked political shit on my stream.
Yeah, because you were listening and you got fuming, didn't you? Well,
I didn't get fuming. I just get upset when people say stupid shit like a welfare check is the cops banging on their door. How many times are you going to keep interrupting me while screaming or crying at me?
Holy shit. This is the beginning of every fucking gay porno. It's
Jesus
like, bro,
Christ.
like they walk up to each other and they're like, no, I'm going to fuck you. No, I'm going to fuck you.
Jesus.
And then it's literally, it's like watching the beginning of a gay porn.
Yeah, when I hear misinformation online, that's incredibly important. I usually like to come on and correct the misinformation.
Is anyone else really turned on?
A welfare check is when someone chugs a monster and kicks down a door.
I'm getting, whew. I got to open up the window. My God.
I appreciate it, but we got to move on to the very serious MS Paint round. So
hit it up.
I just want to ask Destiny, would you rather fuck a vampire or a werewolf? This is for science.
Ooh, that is a very important question.
It's the right answer here.
Probably a vampire.
Yes!
Okay, so actually the real question for this is, we were talking about, like, because it's Halloween, Halloween question. So we were talking about if vampires didn't suck blood and they suck dicks instead, right? But when they suck your dick, like they've had like thousands of years of experience. So they give you the best like dick sucking ever, right? But as a result of them sucking your dick, you get an insatiable need to suck dick, on a frequent basis. So would you let...
I just wanted to be immortal. That was the extent of my analysis, okay? Being an immortal vampire sounds pretty cool.
Dick.
Sure.
Yeah, but you will be immortal with the... If you're a dick-sucking vampire, you would be
Well, if you're a werewolf, you just shit everywhere and get mad every full moon and do nothing. I don't know, werewolves seems like they kind of suck.
They're hairy. I'm not a fan of that.
I'll debate you on the hippy dippy if that's the topic. I'm a werewolf enjoyer.
Okay, well, I mean...
So I know, that's a tough one, isn't it?
I can host it. Okay.
I'm trying so hard not to make any horse jokes right now, guys. God damn it.
Well, hello, you're on my fucking panel here, okay? So
a bit rude.
I was the one who brought up the vampires.
A bit rude to be like...
You might as well debate it on my panel, I'm just saying.
And I won that topic, by the way.
Sure.
Yep, totally. I totally won that topic.
Okay, so MS Paint, guys, can you get out your MS Paints, please?
Can I cheat and use my $2,400 Cintiq with my
No.
No.
That's
Why do you
actually
get to
cheating.
cheat?
I'm so bad at drawing. I definitely lose this.
Yeah, I'm terrible.
Let's fucking do it. I'm ready.
Okay.
Right, hold on. Wait. Okay, hold on. Sorry.
Chat starts suggesting some words, chat, okay?
Hey, fuck
Wait, what do we
you,
have
Chud
to do?
Logic. I just want to get that out there. Sorry, go ahead.
Wait, what are you saying fuck me for? Fuck you, bitch.
You talk shit sometimes, okay? I just need to. I don't
Chud's
think I've
my
told you
friend.
fuck you enough, right?
Wait, are we supposed to be showing paint or no?
No, don't show it. Don't show it. You
Okay.
send it to me.
Okay. Just checking.
What are we drawing? What are we supposed to do right now?
What are we doing?
I'm getting suggestions from chat, and I'm going to give you a word, okay? And then you guys are going to draw on MS Paint what that word is to you, okay?
Okay.
Well, my shit's fucked, so I gotta fix this.
Just a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, fucking the hyper.
Chat, I
voice.
need more abstract words, okay? We did dignity last time. Maybe you can come up with something like
No,
that.
what is wrong with dignity?
Yeah.
We don't know. We're
That's what
Twitch
makes-
streamers. We don't even know what that is.
Wait,
So, okay.
dignity?
Wait, is
How
the
we
rest of the
know
show
that's
just
not
going to
the
be
word.
meme
That's
shit?
not
Did
the
I
word
really
for you
just get
guys
baited
this
into
time, okay?
this,
I'm
and
just
now the
saying
rest
that
are just
was-
going to be meme
That's a
stuff?
tough one.
We're not doing horsecock, guys.